The Vermont housing market is active. It's active in the sense that deals are happening. Me personally, this is my busiest spring yet. Now, part of that is I'm 6 years in the business, so my relationships are matured. I'm more established as a realtor. And part of that is the market itself is very active. Now, what I mean by active is there's more homes on the market. Buyers are able to negotiate with sellers to get a price that they like, and sellers are negotiating depending on their circumstances. Now, there are still homes that sell for over list price. We'll see as we dive into the data later on in this video, but about 16% of all properties statewide are selling for over list price, and roughly 30% of the homes in Chittenden County are selling for over list price. But the vast majority of homes on the market, of deals taking place, are taking place at or below list price. That's just the reality of the market that we're in. So before we dive into the data, some quick tips. If you're a seller out there, be patient. Even if you're priced correctly, there's a good chance that your home's not going to sell in the first weekend, and you're most likely not going to get multiple offers. And if you're a buyer out there, I think you can be patient as well. It's okay to take your time, see a handful of listings, but when the right property hits the market, you shouldn't wait too long, because you never know when another buyer is going to see it and snatch it up from underneath you. Before we get into it, my name is Liam O'Reilly. I'm a realtor here in Vermont with Jerry Riley Real Estate. If you have any real estate needs, all of my contact information is in the description below. Feel free to reach out to me directly. I would be happy to help you. Okay, let's dive into the data. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the median sales price for the entire state of Vermont. You can see that it's down slightly year over year. Compared to March 2025, we're down just a few $1,000s. Overall, the median sales price hasn't changed a whole lot. I do expect the median sales price to spike again as we enter the summer months, but we'll see what happens. We're in a very different market than where we were before. Now, a few key things that I thought were interesting with the statewide data. Closed sales are down significantly. When we take a look here, closed sales are down 8%, which is really strange in my opinion, because when you look at pending sales, as we scroll down the list here, new pending sales are up. They're up about 13% year over year. So a lot of homes are going under contract. For whatever reason, not that many properties closed in March. Now, this spike in homes under contract compared to last year, the 413 compared to 468, that could be a result of fewer sales under contract, fewer homes under contract in January and February, and then everything caught up in March, which is why we have less closed sales and more pending sales in the month of March. Overall, deals are happening, and the pending sales data shows that. Now, when we take a look at the active inventory on the market, we'll see here, active inventory up about 16% year over year. That is significant. There's more homes on the market than what we've seen in years past. Of course, less homes compared to this fall, but we're entering the spring market. Remember, March is really the first month of that spring market. The April data is going to be really telling. What is happening with active inventory in the month of April? That's what we'll talk about in our next video with the next market update. But what I'm personally seeing out there in the market is I'm seeing homes sit for longer. It's no longer a guarantee that a home is going to sell within the first weekend. Homes that are selling in the first weekend, it's very rare that they have more than 2, maybe 3 offers. Occasionally, you'll hear a story about a home getting 5 or 10 offers, but that is by far the exception and not the norm right now. So the market continues to balance out statewide, and we're seeing that reflected in this data here. Let's take a look at what's going on with the supply of inventory. So about 4 months supply, we are right smack dab in the middle of a balanced market. Now, for some reason, this says a balanced market is between 5 and 7 months. I've always heard that it's between 4 and 6 months. So we're right on the edge as far as the statewide data goes, meaning that neither buyers nor sellers have the advantage. And that's why we're seeing people negotiate. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this video that most properties are not selling for over list price statewide. Only 16.4% of properties, down 23% compared to the 21% of homes that were selling for over list price in March of last year. Now, this is trending up. The spring is the busiest time for real estate in general. Most buyers are out there looking to purchase properties in the spring months, especially if you have kids. You don't want to take your kids out mid-school year. So it's a little bit more competitive. It'll be interesting to see how this responds in the coming months, because if you take a look at the pre-pandemic data, we can see that we had some spikes seasonally, but it wasn't that drastic. It remained under 20% of properties selling for over list price, regardless of what month of the year we were in. Obviously, COVID threw that all out of whack. And in 2022, about 60% of properties were selling for over list price. So what I'm looking for as we move into the spring months here is, are we going to continue to see these massive COVID spikes where the market really picks up and homes start selling over list price? Are we going to return to the pre-pandemic norm where less properties are selling for over list price and we kind of remain in this sub 20% zone? Now, shifting over to Chittenden County here, we see a similar story, down year over year, but seasonal data overall, we're not seeing a big shift in the median sales price on a macro scale. These monthly variations can shift quite a bit because there's not that many homes. There aren't that many sales here in the state of Vermont or in Chittenden County. Now, some key factors to keep in mind: the percentage closed over list price is quite a bit higher than the state data, almost double. Nearly 30% of properties are selling for over list price, but again, way down compared to last year. 33% last year, 15% lower this year at 28.4%. Now, we take a look at the percentage of list price received. So most homes here in Chittenden County are selling for right around list price, slightly down from 100%. Now we're at 99%. So on average, sellers are getting what they ask for. That could be after a price drop. Let's take a look at the original list price received. So we see with the original list price received, that means that sellers are cutting their price. And then after they cut their price, on average, they're selling for right around 100%. Now, not every seller is cutting their price. Some sellers have it right off the gate and are able to get what they're asking for. And if you're a seller out here, the important thing to know is the first month that you're on the market is when you're most likely going to receive list price or above. After a month or 2 months on the market, buyers who are viewing your property are thinking that there's a reason why your home hasn't sold for this price. Other buyers have passed at this number and they're not willing to come up and pay what you're asking for. And I'm seeing that a lot right now. There's a lot of sellers out there who have their home listed too high. It's been on the market for a while and buyers just aren't coming to the plate and making an offer at a price that works for the seller. Now, something else that you all should know about the state of Vermont is the most equity rich state in the country. It's something like 86% of all homeowners here in Vermont have 50% or more equity in their home. So what that tells me is that sellers aren't motivated to sell if they don't have to. Now, if they get a job, if they get a divorce, if they have to move out of state, or they need to sell their property, those pressures are different than the pressure to cut their list price because they can't afford their mortgage or because they have a mortgage payment in the first place. There's a lot of people who own their homes outright in the state or have more than 50% equity. So it's likely not burning a hole in their pocket to hold on to their home. And that's part of the stalemate that we're seeing right now in the market is sellers don't want to come down on their price. They don't have motivation or pressure to drop their price significantly. And buyers, for the most part, they're not willing to overpay. Buyers are not willing to overpay for a home that has sat on the market for weeks or months. So the interesting dynamic that we're facing as we move into the spring market, where the most sellers list their home in the spring and the most buyers are out there purchasing properties in the spring. So it is going to be really interesting to see how this dynamic clashes as we move into the busier months of the year. Of course, I'll be covering it all on this channel. Now, some tips before you go. If you're a seller right now, staging your home, making sure that it's clean, that when that prospective buyer walks into your property, it should feel like home to them. That is what is going to sell your property. A buyer wants to walk into your property and they want to envision themselves living in that space. So if you need to fresh up the paint, if you need to declutter and get rid of some items, make sure you do that because you'll have more success in this market. Now, if you're a buyer out there, my advice to you is it's okay to submit an offer under list price and be told no. You're not going to get every single offer that you submit using this strategy, but you will find sellers who are willing to negotiate. You don't really know what the seller's motivation is or how motivated they are until you put that offer in front of them and force them to make a decision, force them to bring a counter back to you. Don't go crazy and offer something like 200 grand under list price. We're not in the type of market where sellers are taking those sorts of offers, but it's okay to offer 5% under list price and see what the seller says. If a home's been on the market for a month or longer and you offer 5% under list price, in my opinion, that's not an offensive offer. It's likely an offer that the seller can work with and you can negotiate back and forth and get to an agreement that makes sense for both of you. So Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, reach out to me directly if you have any real estate needs. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.